anything that Greg Ben puts on is going to be inventive. And so when he asked me to be a part of it, I immediately said yes. And I'm honored that he keeps asking me. So I'm not fucking up too much, which is good this time. I was a little confused by the prompt. It sounded a little bit like a card game my folks would play after drinking a lot, but it's not Inebriated Pinnacle. I had to look up Inumbrating, actually, and I guess it makes some sense. But I read the prompt, and I wasn't quite sure of it. The prompt was confronting the triumphs and tragedies, the plateaus and recesses of the city elevated. It is my intention, his intention, to create a fast urban experience confronting mindfulness. Now, confront means to meet someone face to face with hostile or argumentative intent. So confronting mindfulness, which is a state of active, open attention on the present. So it would seem that confronting mindfulness is being against it, which I'm against, I guess. Toward the city undergoing transformation within a city's frame of space and time. So I wasn't sure exactly what that meant. So rather than call Greg and say, Greg. So that's either a bird we've discovered or the elevator needing some oil. Anyway, I will pause every time that bird-like shriek happens, just for comedic effect, I guess. So I didn't know what Greg was talking about. So what I did was I took those phrases, like confronting the triumphs, for example, or toward the city undergoing, and I put them into the anagrammer. And so I wrote this piece called The Green Dadaist for Greg Ben. This is dedicated to our host. Munch tooth fingerprints in forthcoming pen truths. Green Dadaist. Diarist agenda. Tap a cheerlessness duet. A pet, a cued heartlessness. Eat a uncle's spreadsheets. To hate defectively. Feed theta velocity, heavily fetid octet, defecate thy violet. Mintiest tiny ion, is it in its own intensity? Is it yin ointment? Rotates a facet, a teat forecast, T of castrate, cat feet aortas, ripen exuberance, annex rube recipe, preen ex-urine cab, fling for nuns, condiments, nil funds fomenting scorn, fond consuming lint burns, grown dodger authenticity, heat gad introductory twinge, countrywide knighted gator, thin wart informations, thwart sin information, I tar twin hole informants, misty carafe, scarify meat, a creamy fist, misery a fact. Caped manifesto, a cop manifested. Map defecations. The triumph of men over the biosphere, one regrade at a time. The Seattle riot of 1886, after the gold rush, removed over 200 Chinese people. Ask Mayor Nichols about the monorail and the 124.7 million pissed into the toxic river of amholes and instant millionaires. Never knew Emmett Watson, the bubbleator, almost live in JP Patches. Try yin ointment and cat feet aortas. Ripen exuberance and nil funds fomenting scorn. Grown dodger authenticity, one regrade at a time. Thwart sin information and amholes and instant millionaires. Misery of fact. Map defecations and the triumph of men over the biosphere. Means nothing without collaborators. Are you ready for forthcoming pen truths? Ohm intensity, the diarist agenda of the Green Dadaist. So that's the first piece. And then I thought I would do a mashup of several texts relating to Seattle's past. And it seems to me that Seattle was never small on big ideas in the past, right? Too many hills? Chop one off and throw the dirt in the water, right? So the regrade, one example. So I took several texts which I think in some way or another are related. Some very directly, like Roger Sale's book on Seattle. And I took key phrases and I mixed them in the paragraphs. And so this is called 6 Emerald City Scenes, a Seattle cosmological makeup for Inumbrating Pinnacle. 1. They began walking. Pigeon walked along behind, crying. When evening came and they set up camp, Pigeon was told to stay far away from the newlyweds. In 1885, a group of 12 Seattle people, led by Thomas Burke and Daniel Gilman, decided to have another try at a Seattle-based road. Furthermore, the crop spirit, gentle, superb flavor, found the door of liberation, bestowing rich flavor on all sentient beings, causing them to develop a Buddha body. Growing up as I did, hanging around the Skid Road, First Avenue, the waterfront, and dreaming mostly about baseball, it wasn't hard at all to get a 1.5 grade point. 2. Suddenly someone had stepped on the tump line which she had belted on. Pigeon said, "What is happening to my belt?" The most striking single fact about Seattle in 1897 is that, with the exception of First Hill, different land uses and economic classes everywhere were being mixed. This mixing had not been planned, and probably could not have worked well if it had been. The crop spirit, pure light of seasonal flowers, found the door of liberation, able to cause all sentient beings to experience great joy and happiness. But I did get into the university, and Tubby Graves, the baseball coach, got me jobs punching out mutual tickets at Longacres. 3. When Grandfather Spider's rope had returned him to his own land, Coyote's son had looked for his family. He tracked the trail that his father and wives had made. In general, encaustic work strives to combine biology and botany with imagery that isn't necessarily overt but feels ultimately familiar, influenced by shapes of natural structures as varied as pollen, vertebrae, DNA strands, sea urchin, cellular structures, eggs, blooms, bones, husks, organs, and most recently, insects and forms related to the ovine. No nature of what kind? That is, no nature of appearances, no nature of exhaustion of appearances, no nature of birth, no nature of destruction, of self, of non-self, of living beings, of non-living beings, of enlightenment, of the cosmos, of space, and also no nature of attaining true awakening. Perhaps the strength and character of Seattle is seen most clearly in Harry Alt and James Duncan. Alt was the man whose dream of publishing a labor daily newspaper materialized in the Union Record, which gained a larger circulation throughout the decade. Duncan was president of the Seattle Central Labor Council. Neither was a wobbly, nor in the strict sense, a radical. He walked far forward. He didn't need anything. He saw sweet ripe berries along the road, but this world was strange to him, so he resisted. He just looked at the berries as he passed. Suddenly, he saw an elk coming. 6 days a week. Tomorrow, being Tuesday, we'll have an item about, no, better save that. 6 days a week? A lot of people think a column like this has an army of informants, and in a sense, that is true. Most of my army consists of Private First Class Roy Edenholm, who raises the flag on the PI building, then comes down to help on the phone. Enlightening beings enter concentration, abide in the teaching of the sage, and meditate on and investigate all sounds. They skillfully enter all manner of meditative concentrations and know that all things have no bounds and attain true knowledge of all things. 5. When morning came, the boy walked again. He walked all day until it again became night. He waited, and again morning came. In that twilight before full dawn, suddenly he met a person. This was Night, who said, "Say, in-law, why didn't you shoot my game when he went past?" Boy did not understand. All I saw was a very skinny person going by. Using a flabby definition, I was once a sports writer. There is, therefore, a temptation to bid a tearful farewell to sports column, which is hereby resisted. Tearful partings imply tears on both sides, and the sporting fraternity is noticeably stoic about my leaving them for good. Bodhisattvas, focusing on the Buddha teachings, develop a broad mind and great determination. A determination never to retreat, and through measureless eons cultivate and collect rare, hard-to-obtain mental jewels, all equal to those of all Buddhas. At the outset, Seattle people were markedly neutral about the war, but they had grown prosperous between 1914 and 1917, so it was difficult to be against it too. And 6. Then they all knew. They went outside and called him to come down. They took him in heated water. They bathed him, dried him off, and massaged him with oil from the dead. Oh, the man stank from the stink oil of the dead. Go forward, Watson, said managing editor Stone. Scout the city for stories. Feel the pulse of the city. You are free to write about anything. You are free of sports. Seattle has a superb harbor, and its one great geographical, as opposed to topographical or climatic advantage, is its closeness to Alaska and Japan. Yet as long as the viaduct remains, as long as the downtown area is turned away from the water, this situation will remain more understood than felt. 100 trillion enlightening beings who had perfected great vows, all pure, 100 trillion enlightening beings who had attained the lamp of knowledge, clearly illuminating the teachings, 100 trillion enlightening beings illuminated by the light of the truth of the Buddhas of the 10 directions, 100 trillion enlightening beings expounding the way to get rid of folly throughout the 10 dimensions. Those are the 6 mashups I have. And the sources are Habu by Vi Hilbert, Native American Stories from Puget Sound, the Avatamsaka Sutra, translated by Thomas Cleary, Seattle Past to Present, Roger Sale, My Life in Print by Emmett Watson, and a little bit from Stephanie Hargrave, Organella, Artist Statement. That's the current exhibit at the Shift Gallery in Pioneer Square. And the last thing I'll read today is called Cedar River Watershed Sutra. And so when you want to talk about big ideas, or when you want to talk about what makes Seattle, which is part, I think, of what Greg was getting at, you have to think of water. First of all, this is a Scorpio city, if you look at its astrology. Feminine, water, emotional. You look at the water coming down, whether it be from the sky like tonight, whether it be from the mountains, as we got the name Cascadia from the fact that water cascades down, or if you look at the coastline, water has a lot to say about what's happening here. And this city had the wisdom over 100 years ago to preserve the watershed, to actually say, we're going to have a place where you can't even shit in the woods. And so this is a little bit about that, some of the research I've done on the Cedar River watershed. And if you ever get a chance to go to the Watershed Environmental Learning Center in the Cedar River watershed, it's amazing. They have these spouts. They spit out water at certain tempos, and they create different rhythms because they're landing on drum heads. So it's a very, very cool.
Where is it exactly?
It's the Cedar River Watershed Environmental Learning Center.
What area is?
Rattlesnake Lake.
Oh, okay.
About a half an hour drive by North Bend. So this first part is called Wednesday in the Wet Season. Let me check my time real quick to see how long we've gone. Shit. Okay, this will be the last thing I do. Wednesday in the Wet Season. 1,400,000 thirsty people, half not sick but dehydrated, half not old but not ready to be vulnerable, old growth and second growth. 90,638 acres, 1907, the Milwaukee Road, Chicago, Milwaukee, and St. Paul Railway Company cut through this Cedar River watershed, connect Seattle with Chicago, Everett with Enumclaw. 6 years of Amtrak. Forsythia so yellow on this wet Wednesday. Fir, hemlock, cedar, spruce, either you use a water filter or you are a water filter. A city-owned watershed in the age of climate system disruption. Hooded merganser, buffleheads and common loons. Spotted owls, marbled murrelet, and the ever-still great blue heron Sam saw pushing the world away. They would call it a cosmos. They would call it Rainy Season Lake, then Rattlesnake Lake. They would see a need for clean water even more so than board feed. They would own it clear by 1996 in the age of perpetual stalemate. They would invent the word habitat and hope for no parasites besides capitalists who'd be banned anyway. They'd know the Latin was to have or hold. They'd hold their hand, hold the water. They would identify the western redback salamander and cascade frog, the Pacific tree frog, the long-toed salamander, and 236 bryophytes. bug-on-stick moss, and alpine leafy liverwort. In the cosmos that would hydrate Amazon and lubricate 747s, lawns and pea patches, space dust ale, dragon's tooth stout, and molly moons, reintroducing cryptogam species, it'd be a sacrament and a nod to the need for water. I like it might be more important than a suburban slaughter chemical lawn. Here's where Moncton once was. Here's Rattlesnake Lake, once rainy season lake, now the Canada Goose sounds and airplanes so intrusive. In dense second growth forests, careful thinning encourages more rapid developments of old growth characteristics. Fish sound, when they land back in the wet green reflection of ancient firs that crowd the ridge. Twilight frog sounds, and like in all signs as everything in nature is, reflecting what you'd swirl out. Nature's what returns. A city, its people, stewards of the watershed before the great wars over water. A polis, its people, ugly bags of mostly water, the aliens knew, made of bugs and sword ferns, decaying leaves and bryophytes. And were they wood ducks or common mergansers, American widgeons or whatever, they follow the wind and the stumps don't lie. Stumps are the abandoned canvases of the ghosts of loggers. It would take a city named for a great chief to make this deal, hold this vision, hold the water. Here's a make-work program. Get rid of roads. In 5 more years, 230 miles. Sounds like one of the ducks or something. Get rid of roads. In 5 more years, 230 miles of logging roads are to be dug up and sent back to hell. We stopped Milwaukee Road passengers from dumping their railroad turds here, and the work's just begun. Stream gravel reds are where your future sake kama starts, if there is to be, if the war against the imagination's not won, if those who answer to future plutocrats add 2 + 2 and get water. Happy hour at Rattlesnake Lake, as the light lets the fish see the bugs better, and we do divination based on shapes the shadow of their splashes create. And finally, Rain Drum Port. You hear the drum before you see it being played, but no one's playing it, and yet it goes on, played by the rain, as we all are. The rain, the water straddles. Seattle on 3 sides, colors our insides over time. Scorpio City, nervous, feminine, wet, played by the rain, as we all are, over time. The drums are time beat out by rain, rhythm composed as wet would have it, in Balinese, in Indian, in African, by the rain, by the waters spurted out tubes by a lesser traveled, cunning artificer, beating out a mother rhythm. Rain on the metal roof, rain on the dome roof of the farm. To be owned by rain as an ugly bag of mostly to barrel into your tempting weather, he'd say, ready for wet, ready for sweet, ready for sweat, as the water of the Cedar River might be, the dream of the Cedar River to find itself, sweat of the sweetest kind, up from mineral, in animal heat here, the noble human makes a vow with flow, a vow a river makes after the rain, the resolve to enter the whirlpool of all dharmas, as we all will one day, maybe one wet November day, the Cedar River rain here, carry the water, carry the memory of glaciers and their sacrifice for the ripening of all beings. The drums here are beat, our heartbeat. The drums here are the heartbeat of Cedar River rain, the wet that makes us mostly human.